If you look at rental prices in the US, you will see huge gaps in between the average, the highs, and the lows. So our knowledge must be more specific than just one or two ongoing figures. With affordability declining in practically all markets, people are in search of a place to work and live without breaking the bank. Is it possible? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at real estate within the US, particularly focusing on rent. Now, it doesn't matter where you live around the world. This is applied to you as well. I assure you, we're going to get into that. We're going to look at mortgage rates. We're going to look at so much that is going on today. I put way too much into one video, but hey, what else is new? Let's begin with this. On the right-hand side, the top 10 highest rents in March of 2018. On the left-hand side, you see the top 10 lowest rents. Okay? You see the typical offenders here, whether it is Manhattan, at over $4,000 for 1 month's rent. San Francisco, of course, near the top of the list as well, and you can go down. On the left-hand side, you can see that it is only just a fraction of the most expensive locations. So we see, if you look at the average rent in the United States, it's not close to the highest rent, it's not close to the lowest rent. And that brings me to the point that I want to make. Here is the national average rent, approximately $1,400. If I were to say to you, if you're going to rent a place in the United States today, you are going to pay $1,400 per month. And that is not accurate. And that's the way that we should be avoiding. When we give averages, we need to be very, very careful. If I say real estate is extremely expensive today, well, that is really a generalization. Because what area are we talking about? Are we talking about averages? The prices have increased about 6% per year in many areas. But if I look at Las Vegas, it's more than double that. If I look at areas like San Francisco, it's also almost double. So we can take a look at the statistics, but understand where they're really coming from and what they mean to you. All right? Let's take a look at this. 2-bedroom apartments rents are outpacing other sized units. You can see that here, depending on, if you're a studio or 1-bedroom, what price you're paying, 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom and so on. They're just trying to show you how these prices have increased over the year. I think it is important to understand that you could purchase a place in a certain area and you'd be paying one price, but how much real estate do you get for that money? That's what you need to factor in as well. Rent increases and actual rents in high-rated versus low-rated locations. I want to show you the rent prices that people are paying in the so-called high-rated versus the low-rated locations. Look, you can find cheap rent. You can find cheap homes, practically any city. But are those areas desirable? Are there jobs in those areas? These are the factors that need to be applied when thinking, when judging these different prices. It's not just a number, there's more to it than that. Always factor in, are jobs coming into the area? Are new permits being issued? Are there buildings? Do you see cranes, visual things? What's happening? Are there a lot of boarded up and abandoned buildings? Okay, these are all things you need to think about. Of course, as a person, as an individual, you need to think about many, many things, not just the price and not just necessarily, is it close to my work? You have to think, are there places that I need to go to regularly that I have access to? Is it near public transportation if I don't have a car? Or if I do have a car, do I have a place to park my car? Or do I now have to pay for a parking spot or rent it? That's going to be another factor. Okay, these are all different things. I'll talk about that more in the future. Cost barrier keeps over 80% of renters away from their ideal location and their job. very interesting here. RentCafe did a whole little breakdown of what's happening with the rent. So a lot of this is from RentCafe. And it's interesting, they do these charts here, and I'm going to show you some of those. How much renters are willing to pay extra per month to live in their, quote, ideal location. So you will see that 0, 16.4%, more than $500. Basically, nobody is saying that. But I would have to take a look at this, and the maximum $100, so not much more. 43% of people said they're willing to do that. And it just gave me a thought of how much people are really willing to bend. Because, well, $100, they can always make an excuse. They can cut back here or there. But once we get into that $101, well, suddenly half the people are unwilling. And I understand why. Things are very expensive. You're already pushed to the limits. There's this article here. It covers the different reasons why certain areas are experiencing increased rents, whether it is inventory in that particular area, whether there are no jobs in this area or a lot of jobs in that area. It gets into other issues here, but I would say that in certain markets, you have a lot of just detached homes. So when you have these detached homes, obviously there's only so many that people can be living in. It's not a condominium that's stacked 50 stories into the sky. You only have so many. So the inventory generally is much lower in these areas. And so you have more bidding wars. You have more homes that are priced over their asking and so on. These are factors when you would buy a home. Also, when you look at a statistic, think about it. Does that area have a lot of just detached homes, or do we have a lot of condominiums? These are the factors that I would like to address in a future program I'm going to be bringing out. I won't give any details yet, but just hang in there for that. In Chicago and 5 other cities, renters pay over 50% more for a top-rated location. And this was cool because you can actually go through, put your mouse over. Let's see if it works now while I'm recording. See, I can put my mouse over. I can see San Francisco, rent gap between the top-rated versus the low-rated locations, 19.5%. Big gaps there. If I put my mouse over areas like Brooklyn, for example, you got a 52% gap there. I mean, you can see there. In Chicago, 79%. So listed in a graphical form as well as the chart at the bottom, which I think it's interesting to see this. Doesn't mean that I need to necessarily live in this area. I'm from Toronto myself. However, I'm interested because I'm always looking around, not just for investment purposes, but just for knowledge, to get a good idea. Whenever I can have a conversation with somebody, I always lightheartedly ask them about something I can learn from. Hey, what are the rental prices? What are the real estate prices in your area? Are they expensive? Oh, yeah. Well, do you notice a lot of construction going on in your area and new buildings coming up? If I'm meeting somebody from a different place, I want to know that. Of course, people love to converse about these things, and it's lighthearted. You're not going to get into too many details of where you think the market might be heading, but I think that for me anyway, it's interesting, and it's just building to my knowledge over the years. Just from the comment section of my YouTube channel, I've learned a great deal, so I'm very appreciative, of course. This covers more of the same thing, basically the different reasons why. I'll move on, spare you there. Renter-friendly versus landlord-friendly states. You can see that a wide range here, clearly. So if we go to the West Coast, you're going to see a lot more renter-friendly legislation, whereas there are other places here where we are seeing much towards the other end of the spectrum there. That's, going further into that, there's actually a really interesting interactive chart, I guess you could say, that's available to you. I will have the link in the description. I can click on any of the states and it will give me this bit of information. So for example, Vermont, states ranked by best legislation for renters. I could see all the details of that. You'll be able to break it all down. If you're interested in moving to one of these different areas, maybe it's beneficial to you to check it out, not just to believe what you're told, and actually get a sense of how it will be statistically, and then do more due diligence. It's just a good eye-opener for some people. So I'll have that in the sources as always. This right here, the national average rent was $1,371 in March. It's 2.5% higher than this time last year. Okay, 86% of the nation's biggest 250 cities have seen rents grow in March year over year. 12% of cities' rents remaining unchanged. Only 2% actually dropped. Okay, I wonder why they dropped. Maybe that's Detroit or something. All right, the most significant year-over-year rent changes in March of 2018. Looking at these here, you may know some of these cities. You may be more familiar with them than others. But these cities here, I'm sure many more people are aware of. These are the big cities, the large cities that, let's say, Las Vegas is on there. And I'm actually noticing here that Manhattan is slightly down. I think I did bring that up in one video, or at least I remember seeing that article. But it's still, you have to remember, it's still over $4K. It's over $4,000. So if it comes down 0.3%, it's still ridiculously unaffordable. All right. This here, I was going to cover it, but I think I'm running on too long. Meet renters Arnie and Vinnie, and it's trying to basically compare living in Arkansas to living in Vermont. If you're interested, you can read it for yourself. That interactive chart previous that I showed you would give you all these details. They're just trying to make it in something that's like an infographic that can be shared online. And then this is a report that they did here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let me quickly. Society appears to have been telling people the right thing to do, own a home, but for the wrong reason. More specifically, it appears that home ownership forces saving, and when combined with the tendency of households to remain homeowners once they initially switch to ownership explains why owners have more wealth. That's their idea. They look at it statistically, they break it down further. I wanted to just address this here. If you are renting, there's nothing wrong with that. Some markets, it makes a lot more sense to be renting than buying. If you are trying to get into this market today and you're only able to put a couple percent down, I don't think that's a wise thing to do. When you only put a few percent down, you're carrying a lot of debt. You're going to be carrying it cheaply today, but the next time you need to finance that property after that, let's say 5-year period is over, 3-year, 5-year period, you're going to be in big trouble because we can see that they've been increasing interest rates. If these interest rates are double, or even let's say mortgage rates being 6-7%, historically still low, that would be disastrous for so many people. And also you have to factor in what when you look at the current prices today, is that truly something you can pay in a given month? Or are you fooling yourself? The bank, the alternative mortgage lenders, they're going to give you whatever you want. They'll give you whatever you want. And there's a lot of people out there who will sign paperwork to make sure you get whatever you want, even if you shouldn't have it. So be careful. That's what I'm suggesting. If you think that renting is the option for you, don't feel like it's a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to make educated decisions. Maybe where you're living isn't the right place. You have to factor that in as well. So I'm going to leave that up to you. None of this is, my opinion. I want to show you the statistics so that you can have your opinion. Okay, that's all for this video. If you found that informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it helps us support the channel. Do appreciate that very much. And If you want the financial education that was not taught to you in schools, these 2 books have it all. I took all my knowledge, squeezed it into 2 books, and I hope that you will find these as informative as all of the people who have told me that they've really appreciated the knowledge in these books. I know you'll feel the same. If you want to flip through them, link is in the description of this video. If you're more interested in the audiobook version, you can get that at themoneygps.com.